plugin EQs. Now, you've probably seen people using this before, FabFilter Pro Q2, and I've made it full screen, but of course it can be, I can make it less full screen like that, and I can make it even smaller so it looks more like what you may have seen. So you may have at some stage in your production careers seen this guy at one stage or another. I'm going to make it big because that's just much nicer. You've probably seen people using FabFilter Pro Q2, or maybe this or another one. The specifics aren't necessarily that important. So the question I am I'm asking and answering it. The question I'm answering today is, are plugin EQs worth it? Should you use plugin EQs? I mean, after all, this is very cool. The colors are fantastic. You're probably thinking like I was, wow, those are nice colors, but do I really need to use this? I mean, if you go to any DAW, there will be an EQ, and you can even make it big in your DAW too. So you can make curves, and you can do things, and that's great. I mean, you can do these things using your DAW. So what is the point of these plugins? Here is the answer. For very simple EQing, maybe you're just doing a bit of a high shelf, or doing a gentle notch, or a bit of a boost, or cutting the lows. For things like that, they sound exactly the same, which isn't bad. However, 2 reasons why it might be worth considering a plugin. I'll plug you in. Reason 1, additional features. So in the case of I'll hop out of here, back into Ableton. Most built-in EQs do things like mid-side and left, right, and so on. But what they don't do, usually anyway, at least not in the case of Ableton, for example, what they don't do is stuff like this, giving you an option between minimum phase and linear phase EQing. So there's 2 minimum phase here, 0. It's all very technical, how much detail to go in. I'm not going to go into too much detail. In fact, I'm not going to at all explain the difference between minimum phase EQ and linear phase EQ, or even the option to do mixed phase EQ. It's all extremely technical, and to answer the question properly takes 15 to 20 minutes, or at least 12 minutes of very, very concise, dense information. And I'm doing a course about it now. But if you are right at that very nerdy, technical, extreme end of the music production spectrum, like me, then it's useful to have these options: minimum phase versus linear phase EQing. Now, the reason why you don't actually see this very often, though, at least there is no option as standard, it's just no option at all, there's no option in Ableton, is that most of the time, to be honest, in most normal situations, you simply don't need to consider it. For doing your normal EQing, maybe you've just got maybe you're doing something like this, maybe that's your curve. For just doing that, you don't need to be worried about it. If it was always causing problems, then Ableton would have included it as standard. But it's not always a problem, but sometimes it is. And at least if you're right at that very, very top end of being nerdy with the details. So it's nice to have these options, these higher level features. These help tips are on. I don't need any help. Furthermore, more features coming now. Note this video is not sponsored by FabFilter. It happens to be my favorite and most of the world's favorite, as it's basically the best, although there are a few other EQs like this one that occasionally give you something that this doesn't do. Anyway, back to the video. So what you'll find is plugin EQs oftentimes give you features not included as standard. So 2 here, for example, in Pro Q, the option to set cutoff positions to specific notes on the keyboard. I won't get into it now, but that's cool. Also, the ability to A/B without doing any other fancy configuring. For example, you can have A, B, different curves on each side, which you can obviously play around with. The advantage being it's just one button to change between the two, so you can audition. All useful stuff. Also, in addition, oftentimes plugin EQs give you a bit more control over the curves. So it's not just 12 or 24 or 48 dB curves. You can do some steeper ones. It's cool. Yeah, more curvy curves. That's fun. Features. That's one of my reasons why you might want to consider plugin EQ. Reason number 2. Reason number 2. What was it? I've completely forgotten. No, I haven't. So reason number 2 is workflow, feeling, and vibe. So you may have noticed it's an incredibly nice, in fact, most plugins, it's actually quite hit and miss. Some plugins have a horrible interface. Some are beautiful like this and just inspire like confidence, and you just get excited to use it. Some are like that, and it's important not to overlook the value of this. If, say, for whatever reason, using this EQ gets you more creatively inspired, if it gets you more excited and more just you like using it, yes, that doesn't, I suppose, technically speaking, affect sound quality, but it will influence your decision making. And so you could argue that using something you love and that gets you excited has its own value. I mean, it is beautiful. It's one of the reasons, to be honest, why I think FabFilter. And so let me explain. I mean, as I say, this video is not sponsored by FabFilter. Let me explain why this tends to be the most popular. So, I mean, in terms of features and sound quality, it is probably the best overall as your general purpose EQ. Yes, there are some obscure, vintagey sort of vibey ones, which you could argue better in some cases. I don't personally agree with that, but some people would do. So for just general purpose EQing, this is probably the best, objectively speaking. But then what happens is, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that's why everyone uses it. I think the reason everyone uses it is because lots of the top pros used it, and then more people used it because there's all the top pros using it, and it's pretty. So you've got to get a bit of the placebo effect too. Placebo effect, not effect. That's just a got FabFilter filter. Words are difficult. So the pros used it, or it looked pretty, so people got it for that reason. And then more people used it, and it also looks pretty. And then more people used it, and then more people saw other people using it, and it's pretty. So I think lots of people use it just because it's pretty, which, as I say, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's, in terms of features and sound quality, as I say, it is also the best. Something to think about. I'm recording. I do that a lot. Just completely forget if I'm recording or not. Something to think about. Should you get a plug-in EQ? I don't think most people don't need one. I would definitely say most people don't need one. However, if you want to get right on the cutting edge, or not the cutting edge, the very top end of nerdy music production stuff, and you want to mess about with stuff like minimum phase versus linear phase and a whole bunch of other complicated stuff, do check out all the features. As I say, you do get features in here you don't get as standard. If all that sounds exciting, do give it a consideration. And yes, I suppose my official recommendation as multiplier is FabFilter Pro Q2. FabFilter, do feel free to send me some money if you want. Just to be clear, 100% clear, this is not a sponsored video. I have no monetary or even any sort of affiliation with FabFilter at all. They just make a really good product, which I wanted to tell you, which I wanted to share. Just like Serum and iZotope. So generally speaking, iZotope I feel are the best company for mixing and mastering plugins, tools, software things. Serum's the best synth, and at least for EQing, my favorite is FabFilter Pro Q2. Advice, knowledge, power, thought, have a think, and yes, that answers, hopefully at least, question I was asking myself for many, many years, and you may have asked it, you may have wondered it yourself. And hopefully now you no longer, maybe you're still wondering, but hopefully this video has shed some light on the notion, the question: do you need a plug-in EQ? What's the point of plug-in EQs? Don't DAWs, have them anyway. Well, that's why all of the answers to that are in this video, or at least thoughts, feelings, and emotions. My name has been Multiplier. I'm going to make that full screen again. I will catch you guys on the flippity flip. Yeah, we'll keep it simple. The flippity flip. This video is sponsored by me, my website. As you can see here, I have a whole range of things available, from Serum presets through to Serum tools, samples, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Do check it out, link below, multipliermusic.com, and/or subscribe. Thanks for watching.